Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 26th of December, wherein we pick up all important news for the day and explain it to you from the examination perspective. So let's look at the important news which we will cover today. First is the digital initiatives has been launched to strengthen the citizen-centric administration, a very important component for digital governance in the country. We are celebrating 100 years of Communist Party of India establishment. There has been a report on implementation and effectiveness of the RFCTLARR Act of 2013. Then there has been a release of report talking about the state of marginal farmers in India. And lastly, we are going to discuss about the manufacturing sector of India. We're also going to see place in news, that is Nigeria, along with certain quick updates for the day. So the very first news is digital initiatives has been launched, which is strengthening the governance mechanism of the country, a very important topic for your GS paper number 2 governance, wherein we talk about the ideas of e-governance, how digital governance is going to make the governance process more easier, more transparent, more accountable. So a very important topic. You can use the entire content in any questions which talks about the benefits and the reforms in the area of e-governance in the country. So this particular news talks about it. Again, all of you know about the, let's say, IGOT Karam Yogi portal. It is talking about it, how civil servants need to be constantly updating their skills, right? So this platform is certainly helping with respect to giving them courses, which is going to talk about how they are going to update their skills as in when they do the task of governance in the country. So that is something IGOT Karam Yogi portal. So we know about this, right? So there has been certain additions to this portal. One is this IGOT AI Sarthi. What exactly is this AI Sarthi? It is basically, let's say if I am an officer, I am handling a certain department of a government, and I am struggling to know or to maybe browse through the courses in the IGOT Karam Yogi portal, that what are the courses which might be suitable to me according to my work, right? So this AI based thing or addition which has been done to the portal is going to, let's say, make the officers and the civil servants understand what kind of courses are suitable according to their work, according to their, let's say, career, right? So that is something talking about this. Then is we have IGOT AI tutor. So many times while learning in the digital platforms, many times we there is a tendency of, let's say, not that much of effective learning. So that is something which has been incorporated by this AI tutor, which is just like a personal teacher. So it is of course going to provide support in terms of in-course supports, clearing of doubts, helping officers learn better while doing the course. So this addition with respect to incorporation of artificial intelligence is going to help and again better utilize the IGOT Karam Yogi portal. So again, if we have better trained officers, again they are going to take better decisions in the governance sector, and we are going to get better services for us. So that is a basic utility of this platform, and that is something talking about that how digital governance is something very much required, and government is also working with respect to improving the efficiency of civil servants, officers who are going to do this task of digital governance. One more thing is there, Karam Yogi Digital Learning Lab. So what exactly this lab? So again, this IGOT portal, all the AI tools which are incorporated over here, so they are basically made in this particular training center. So again, it is a next generation facility to create modern training content for civil servants, because the portal will contain a lot of content, lot of courses. So all of these courses are built up over here. So it is using both augmented reality versus virtual reality, and again it talks about including gamification and interactive simulants. For example, let's say if I am a civil servant, I need to train myself about how should I better manage any flood situation. So of course, I need to go to the ground, and then again, if how situations are being handled during certain disasters. But through this artificial simulation, the courses are designed by both augmented as well as virtual reality, that how exactly we are going to maybe train ourselves with respect to this particular phenomena. So officers can learn by doing practice, real life situations, and improving the problem solving skills. Clear? So that's the basic idea over here. Then, in general, we're going to talk about what is the significance of digitization in citizen-centric administration. We have seen that again how helpful this digitization has become with respect to better service delivery by the government. So let's look at some certain examples. So these are the common pointers. You can use it in any answer which talks about the benefits of digital governance or e-governance, right? So certainly these kind of current news gives you again a revision of something what we have already read in the chapter of e-governance in the governance section of GS paper number 2. So the first one, of course, here is transforming public administration. So earlier administration was just based on, there was less tech-driven administration, right? So digitization is basically replacing the whole paper file model of governance, and we are incorporating technology-driven governance. Again, it is going to help the government or the governance process to make decisions in a very faster, informed, data-driven manner. So we know all of these benefits. Example, files move online instead of physically moving them, again improving the efficiency in terms of working, saving a time. Then we have enhancing service delivery, right? So with this digitization process, what we have seen, governance, again the whole model of course here is ki earlier we used to go to the government for governance services, but with the coming of e-governance, government is coming to us to provide governance services. That is a basic change what we have observed, and that is the role which this digitization in governance is playing, right? So a very important segment. So again, now with this digitization, governance can happen from anywhere at any point of time. So that is making us reducing the ideas of delays, physical visits is going to happen less, procedural complexity is going to happen less, right? So this is something, let's say, helping with respect to improving the efficiency of governance. An example is applying for certificates or services online from home. You need not to go to the offices. Let's say if you are going to apply for a passport, you can go for the Passport Seva portal and again apply for a fresh passport. Earlier, which was happening by going to Passport Seva Kendras, right? So again, this is the power of digitization in governance. Then we talk about that it is strengthening the idea of citizen engagement and participation. So with this digitization coming into picture, it is making the citizens actively involved in the governance process. And how they are doing it, because there is a constant feedback mechanism. There are multiple portals, people can interact, people can ask government, right? So feedback portals, online consultations, grievance redressal mechanisms, all of these is making that again how people, citizens are interacting while availing governance services. So citizen-centric digital services, and this is something replicable with respect to how private sectors are functioning. They have mobile apps, they have real-time updates, they have personalization on the basis of the customers or the consumers which they are incorporating or dealing with. So this model of private sector efficiency is something which is getting replicated in the governance services, which is making the whole process of governance a two-way interaction between the citizens and the government. Then we have increasing accountability and trust. So digitization, of course, is talking about curbing a lot of problems around corruption, around delay we have discussed. So digitization is creating traceable digital records, right? It is generating audit trails. So no longer maybe certain files where they are stuck, what is the reason of their delay, everything is there. And can be easily traced through this digitalization in the governance process. So the result, of course, here is less discretion-based decision making. It is more data-driven basing, reducing the ideas of corruption and higher trust in government by the citizens. Then we have improving administrative efficiency and reducing cost. So again, we understand that again how automation of task is of course going to be happening through this digitization of governance services. So we see less number of or maybe the efficiency of government is increasing by automation services. For example, bureaucratic delays, human errors, operational expenses, these are reduced with this automation of tasks which were earlier done through manual way. So the government works faster and at a very lower cost by decreasing the operational cost. Then we have data driven governance, very important segment. With digitization, we know that data is a new hero of the day, right? So this is making digital, let's say the digital systems generate a very large amount of actionable database. Let's say if I have data with respect to performance of all primary health centers in a state, then I will be able to frame policies on the basis of that particular data, and that goes down to different areas of governance or the governance services provided by the government. So this is something talking about that decisions will no longer be on the basis of assumption. Decisions will be on the basis of data, which is going to improve the process of governance and a very important component of government service delivery efficiency. So these are the potential benefits of digitization with respect to governance. And we have seen that again how government is also making civil servants let's say, trained in a better manner with respect to providing services to the people, right? And the examples we have discussed with respect to the updation in the IGOT platform, Karamogi platform. So this topic is very important for digitization in governance, so you can use them in your answers. A very important topic. The next topic is 100 years of Communist Party of India, you know this. So in history, any anniversary years leads to that topic back in news. So CPI as a topic has come back in news. We are celebrating 100 years of its establishment, right? So a very important topic. So from historical perspective, from history, MIH, modern and history, this topic becomes important for your examination, right? So again, its role, the role of CPI in freedom struggle, all of those segments we are going to discuss in this particular news. A very important topic for your GS paper number 1. And also you can see some prominent personality names who were associated with this CPI movement, right, and CPI party. So those personalities also have come back in news. So they are also very important from prelims point of view. So the very first thing is what exactly is CPI and why is it important? So Communist Party of India, it was basically founded in Kanpur on 26th of December 1925. So again, 2025, 26 December we are. So we are celebrating 100 years of establishment of this. So again, it was a first attempt in India to build an all India Communist Party. I'll talk about what is the idea of communism, what is the idea of Communist Party, right? So because the communist people wanted freedom from the British government, and not only political freedom, but they also wanted social and economic equality in India as well. So again, they are focusing on removal of poverty, exploitation, caste discrimination, and inequality from society. So let's discuss how all of these started. What is the genesis of formation of the CPI party? So in 1920 in Tashkent, which is the capital of, or which is there in Uzbekistan, so this CPI, Communist Party of India, was formed by Indian revolutionaries which met in Tashkent in 1920. So that's a historical thing, but again, it became operational in India in the year 1925. And why these people and how these people were inspired? In 1917, we had this Russian Revolution, where again we got to know the powers of workers and peasants that could of course overthrow the oppressive system which was prevalent in Russia. So that led to, and in this 1920 we have a group of prominent figures who were there. Exiled basically means that British government knew that again we do not want any kind of communist ideology, because we have seen that a communist ideology or a people practicing communism has led to overthrow. And again we saw that in the Russian Revolution. So British government was very skeptical and it did not allowed any communist based thing happening in the country, and that has led to this Indian revolutionaries who went to Tashkent, which is there in Central Asia, and there they discussed the idea of this Communist Party of India. That is why I call it as an exile. So M.N. Roy, Muhammad Ali, M.P.T. Acharya, Muhammad Shakib. So this was something, all of these figures were prominent one who were associated with the genesis of this party in the year 1920 in Tashkent. And its formal birth in India took place in the 1925, 26th of December. So this is where we at Kanpur Communist Conference in December 1925, it got its let's say its birth in India. So this united all the scattered communist ideological people together, and they talked very strongly about the British government, and its leadership included, the first president was Singaravellu Chettiar. So again a very important personality again in news, so again you're going to remember them. Then the first secretaries were S.V. Ghate, J.P. Bagheretta. So again all of important, more there are some more personalities who were associated with the CPI movement in India, or CPI as a political party in India. Please remember their names. A.K. Gopalan was there. So many other personalities were there. So these personalities are very important from your prelims point of view. Now, let's discuss what was the role of CPI in the freedom struggle movement of the country. So number one is, so they led to this whole idea of mass mobilizations, wherein we talked about in the initial few leg or the initial leg of freedom struggle, we saw maybe some specific people from society who were talking about freedom struggle. We saw less involvement of people or ordinary people in the freedom struggle. So CPI believed freedom must involve ordinary people and not just the elites. So they it mobilized the All India Trade Union Congress of India, peasants through All India Kisan Sabha, students and women through mass organizations. Again, they basically, all of these ordinary people who were working in factories, farms and streets, they involved them in the freedom movements of the country. That is, we talk about the ideas of mass mobilization. So this is how they mobilize the mass towards freedom struggle. Then, as I discussed, they wanted not just political freedom, they wanted social and let's say economic equality in the country. So we understand during the time India had a lot of social discrimination against on the basis of caste, religion, class, right? So they talk about strongly about social reforms to happen in the country. So again, they supported Dalit rights, they supported Hindu-Muslim unity also, they opposed caste discrimination and communalism. So an example is, in Kerala, we had A.K. Gopalan led the Guruvayur Satyagraha demanding entry of untouchables into temple. Again, a landmark event. Again in news. So what exactly is this Guruvayur Satyagraha? So again, it was something talking about untouchability or temple entry to untouchables, which was led by A.K. Gopalan. So basically, the idea was political freedom without social inequality was incomplete. So they talked about the social reforms as well. Then they demanded some Purna Swaraj. So we understand Purna Swaraj was demanded by Indian National Congress in the year, you know this, right? So again, this is something they have talked about, that again Purna Swaraj was demanded by the Communist Party of India in the year 1921 and 22 in the INC sessions manifestos. So CPI was way ahead with respect to Congress in terms of their thinking, in terms of their ideology, right? So it talked about Purna Swaraj, complete independence. So but the Congress, of course, officially accepted it at this Lahore session in 1929. Then a role in constitutional thinking. So again, the whole idea of that again, after freedom, we need a constitution, which is going to talk about how we are going to govern the country, what will be the rules, regulations, institutions, everything in the. So the idea of having a constituent assembly, whose constitution will be from the elected members from India itself, that idea was given by this party in the year 1934 itself. That again, M.N. Roy was the one who proposed a draft constitution in the year 1934, and CPI has been consistently arguing with respect to free India should have a constituent assembly which has to be chosen by the people and not gifted by the British. So this led to the idea became, of course, the foundation of India's constitution's making process. So these are the prominent role with respect to how this Communist Party of India has a role to play in India's freedom struggle, an important topic for an examination. And again, 100 years of it. So again, that becomes very important for examination, both for prelims and mains, from the topic of modern Indian history. Then we have a report has came out with respect to implementation of and effectiveness of the Act of 2013. So what exactly is this act? So this talks about that again, we talk about something wherein land acquisition is happening. If government for developmental purposes requires certain amount of land and that belong to some specific group of people, so the government is telling that again we are going to pay compensation for that. So we have something called as a right to fair compensation and transparency in the Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act of 2013. Right. So there has been a standing committee which was being set up by the Parliament to assess the rural development and the working of Panchayati Raj institutions, and to check that how well they are implementing the Act of Right to Fair Compensation. So this is something the committee has released a report, and it has given a very stark picture that again the act which has mandated compensation to be fair, transparent, is not actually happening in reality. So again, let's discuss what this committee has given in its report with respect to this. So the act was basically to ensure compensation, transparency and proper rehabilitation, but the committee has found that the provisions of the act are not implemented in reality. So let's see what they have talked about. Number one is they have told that again this fair compensation is very faulty with respect to its implementation in scheduled areas. We understand that again our constitution has given special status with respect to governance of the scheduled areas in the constitution. We have 5th schedule, we have 6th schedule, right? So the act also talked about that again when we deal with scheduled areas land acquisition, so there has to be certain kind of let's say consideration. Right. So even though scheduled areas have special legal status, so what we are seeing over there, that there is land under valuation. What is under valuation? Let's say if a land cost is something around, let's say 1 lakh rupees, in paper they are showing it 50,000 rupees. So that is leading to what? Less valuation, and the compensation which is supposed to be given will of course be less. So that is something happening in these scheduled areas. Superficial Gram Sabha consultations. So again, a very important segment is that whenever these land acquisitions are happening, Gram Sabhas must be consulted. But again, it is happening in just superficial level. This committee has talked about. Meetings are held only for formality and nothing is discussed in its core, right? And exclusion of vulnerable groups like tribals and forest dwellers are also happening whenever this land acquisition is happening. So these are the vulnerable groups who are mostly affected due to this land acquisition, and they are not fairly compensated. So why this is a problem? Because scheduled areas are constitutionally protected. So ignoring them is of course directly harming the tribal rights. So what the committee has suggested, the committee has told you need to strengthen the role of Gram Sabha. Do not hold meetings just for namesake. Please make sure that whenever any land acquisition is happening with respect to specific the vulnerable sections of tribal, right, and forest dwellers, so please pay a good amount of consideration with respect to approval of this land acquisition. Make Gram Sabha's consent mandatory, that again if they are telling yes, then only land acquisition will happen, right, and empowers the Gram Sabha by giving them veto powers. That if say let's say Gram Sabha is not approving, not allowing for land acquisition, but the government is saying again we need to have this particular piece of land, but their Gram Sabha must have a veto power to stop that land acquisition, which is again aligning with the community interest and local developmental plans. So this is something which this committee has pointed out. The second one is non-compliance again with PESA rules. So again, Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act, we know about this, a very important topic for your examination. So this talks about that again, whenever there is land acquisition happening specifically in scheduled areas under the PESA, there has to be a mandatory consultation from these Gram Sabhas. And we have seen, the committee has seen that again, many states are not following this particular criteria. So why? Because PESA has been existent in order to, let's say, respect the tribal culture, their customs, their rights. So if PESA is there, then why the Gram Sabhas are not consulted? Which is something a problem. So this is talking about, the committee has told that again, we need to have codification of consent. Right, so whenever consent are being provided, that has to be codified, which is going to make the process easier and transparent with PESA. And clearly, we need to write a law with respect to Gram Sabha's consult is compulsory. Specifically, whenever we are going for any land acquisition in these scheduled areas, because they are the ones who are again very they don't have any voice towards the things happening with them. And of course, due to their maybe condition itself, they are less literate, right? They do not have any much exposure, and that is something which is affecting them due to these kind of problems. Then we have violation of Forest Rights Act. When we have talked about, again, there are a lot of traditional and forest dwellers, tribal people who have their livelihoods towards these forests, right? So forests, whenever these forest lands are acquired, so again, there is, without setting Forest Rights Act, again a Forest Act right talked about that whenever we are taking rights of these forest dwellers and tribal people, so we need to provide them with enough compensation, and that has to happen with utmost fairness. So why in the case of land acquisition, they are not abiding with the Forest Rights Act, and that is leading to people losing their livelihood, cultural ties towards the forest, traditional access to forest. So committee has suggested that whenever you're going for land acquisition, please respect, and again please have integration with respect to Forest Rights Act, and any loss of customary forest rights should be treated as economic displacement requiring full rehabilitation. Clear? So that is something they are maybe trying to integrate this land acquisition with the Forest Rights Act. Then is whenever any developmental project is happening, we go for environmental impact assessment, we go for social impact assessment, but under this particular act also, right to fair compensation, there has to be a mandatory SIA and EIA. So, but what is the problem over here? That again, they are just doing it for the sense of formality, and there is no effective impact assessment both at social and economic level being done. So the reports are, and again, many times, whenever these reports around social impact assessment and economic impact assessment are being given, they are mostly inclining with respect to favoring the acquisition of land. That is something which this committee has found out. So the committee has recommended that again we need to adhere to the strict guidelines at how exactly we are going to go for social and economic impact assessment with respect to any acquisition which is going to happen, and Department of Land Resources must ensure both EIA and SIA are genuinely conducted and not just only rubber stamped. Then they have also talked about failure of National Monitoring Committee. So again, for implementation of any particular act, we form, of course, a committee, and that committee is going to oversee the entire implementation of the act. And this committee, the standing committee has talked about that again, there has been a failure of this committee, National Monitoring Committee, which was going to monitor this entire implementation of Right to Fair Compensation Act. So, and we have seen that again, there have been major developmental projects, and these committee are formed to, let's say, address the grievances of people who are affected due to these land acquisitions or these big projects. We have seen examples of Kane Betwa, the Polavaram project. So they have seen a lot of agitation, a lot of protest from people, but the committee has not given them any kind of relief. So large projects affecting thousands of families, and again, a very weak monitoring leads to protests and displacement. The committee ने बोला है क्या करना चाहिए. We need to have a basin-wide assessment before a project happens, and again, we need to conduct something called as basin-to-basin social impact assessment. Let's say a land acquisition going to happen in city A, and let's say a river is flowing from this area to this is a natural course of river from its source to its destination. So the basin to basin social impact assessment talked about that you are not going to only assess social impact of that particular project or land acquisition in this area, but from end to end, from its source to its destination. If the river is flowing from here to here, whatever people in whatever manner are going to be impacted by this project, that assessment has to happen, and not only in this particular designated land acquisition area. And they have also talked about that again we need to frame strong guidelines with respect to strengthening this whole national monitoring committee by clear timelines, active involvement, more transparency in the work process. So that is something we have talked about with respect to this particular committee. So then they have also talked about that there is something called as land classification or land classification manipulation, right? We understand what are greenfield projects, what are brownfield projects, right? So, but in the land acquisition process, there is happening that rural greenfield lands are classified as urban brownfield lands. So again, we are designating something which is greenfield as what? Something which is brownfield and not belonging to rural area, urban area. So this is making the process of acquisition quite easier, right? But which is discriminatory. Example, we have the Bharat Mala project. This is lowering the compensation policy liability of the government. Why it is unethical? Because classification tricks, they deny the landowners their rightful compensation. So committee ने बोला है कि we need to have a central monitoring and land classification committee. There has to be a dedicated central monitoring and grievance redressal mechanism. It has to be made mandatory to disclose of boundary changes with respect to classification between rural and urban areas, and any official who was found to be doing for this kind of land manipulation, there has to be strict let's say penalization which has to be given to that particular set of officers. This is somewhere they talked about that how with respect to assessment of right to fair compensation, what challenges we have been facing and what exactly has to be done. They also talked about that again we have failed to establish authority, right? So for this implementation of an act, we needed to have a land acquisition, rehabilitation and resettlement authority, right? Because any time any acquisition is happening, disputes are bound to happen, and those disputes have to be resolved by the government itself. So what we have seen that this body was not being set up by the government, and this the committee has highlighted, and it has suggested that the Ministry of Rural Development should actively coordinate between the states, and they should ensure that any this land acquisition rehabilitation authority should function and should get operational as soon as possible, right? So these are a few areas where again the committee has discovered the problems with respect to right to fair compensation and how it is happening. A very important topic for your GS paper number 3, we have a specific topic of land reforms, right? So this topic comes under them, right? So again, whenever a question talks about that, what are the challenges we are facing with respect to land reforms in the country, what are the challenges we face with respect to land acquisition, you can talk about this. They can ask you to assess the performance of Right to Fair Compensation Act of 2013. So all such questions could be there. Again, this news has enough content which could be very much suitable for even for a 150 or a 250 word answer, right? So that's how it is. The next topic is we have come up with a report which talks about the state of marginal farmers in the country, right? So this report has been released. So whenever we talk about marginal farmers, who are these marginal farmers? If I talk about what problems Indian agriculture is facing, one of the problems is the problem which is being faced by these marginal farmers. So the marginal farmers, this report has been released, and they talk about that again, how much not integrated with the cooperatives or agricultural cooperatives these marginal farmers are, and these cooperatives which is going to give them credit, and they are not able to access the benefit of these cooperatives or agricultural cooperatives. This report has highlighted. So it talks about that again, how cooperatives, specifically the primary agricultural credit societies, affect their lives. So again, with respect to prelims questions, you can have these kind of pointers that who do we call as marginal farmers? What is the criteria? So again, any farmer or cultivator who owns less than 1 hectare of land, very important. Then they form in India 64.5%. These kind of data you can use in introductions of your answer, and they own only 24% of cultivable land. So this means many farmers are having, but again what, they're having very less piece of land, and that is leading to what, low income with respect to their farming. So why are marginal farmers again vulnerable? They are vulnerable. Why? Because they have small land holding. Come land holding, it leads to what? It leads to low production, low income of these small and marginal farmers. Then we have poor access to credit. So, they have less amount of land, then they do not have access to credit. Agar they have no access to credit, then how they have been facing difficulty in buying seeds, fertilizers and machines. Then they have also limited access to markets. Of course, they cannot go and sell their products. So again, they are forced to sell at a price which is lower than the market price. Then weak access to public services, schemes don't reach them very easily. So for that, we have committees or cooperative societies which are going to be very important for them, right, with respect to what? Providing them with crop loans, input storage and livelihood security, but they are very less interlinked to this thing. That is something this report has highlighted. Okay, so let's look at what other things it has talked about. Then they are talking about why are these small and marginal farmers are facing issue or barriers with respect to their engagement with these cooperatives, right? So number one, from the farmer's side, let's say if I am a small farmer, what kind of constraints I am facing? I am facing constraints. I have less knowledge. I am less literate, or my education is less. So I have a limited education of schemes and benefits. ये तो पूरा problem overall country में है that many people are not aware about the schemes of the government, then how they can take benefit out of it. So that is something, awareness generation is very important. You future civil servants have a very important role to play in that linkage, right? So lengthy and bureaucratic processes, long distance to cooperative offices, low digital skills. So these are the farmer level constraints with respect to why they are not engaged with these agricultural cooperatives. Then funding mechanisms. We have seen that although we have created committees, right, but they have what? Financial constraint, insufficient credit availability. जब खुद के पास पैसे नहीं है, how they are going to offer credit to the marginal farmers, and that is leading to what? Less effective services, and is specifically seen in the states of Uttarakhand and Maharashtra. Then we have lower cooperative service update. Right, so again, cooperatives, the staff shortage is there, staffs are not properly trained enough, and that is leading to weak capacity both at a working administrative as well as a geographical level, right? So farmers with this kind of service provided by the cooperatives, they are not engaging because there is no much benefit they are getting with respect to the cooperatives, what they are. Then we have infrastructure deficits. Again, we understand this, that again, whenever these cooperatives are, they have, the buildings are not appropriate, the offices are very far from the rural area, right? Then they have shallow digitalization. So this is reducing what? The transparency, efficiency, and outreach of, specifically, it has been seen in the state of Uttarakhand. Then gender gaps. So again, the cooperatives are majorly male dominated, but in agriculture we have seen that how much females are there in the agriculture sector. So this is continue even where women are the major contributors to agriculture, household economic activity, right? So these are the prominent problems or the barriers with respect to why small farmers are not integrated and not taking benefit of these cooperatives, which are being specifically provided and made to give them agricultural credit and access and a lot of other things. Then what are the recommendations which this committee, which this report has highlighted, or which in general are? Sir, if we have primary agricultural credit society, but farmers are not aware about it, so please make them aware about it by what? Using broadcast and community level campaigns. So again, as examples, now you are not going to use only for this. For any scheme which is not effectively implemented, you can go for what? You can go for broadcast and community level campaigns. You can engage digital tools. That is, you are promoting something beyond the natural way of promoting it. That is, we need to promote the diversified role of PACs. That is, it's not just only about giving money, but again, there are multiple other services which is being provided by this particular cooperative society. Then we have mission mode approach, right? So again, in this, if the cooperatives are specifically working for farmers, so the mission is what? Helping the farmers, and that has to be given the utmost priority. So focus on farmer first, and we are going to be guided by the vision of Sahakar Se Samriddhi scheme, which is an idea of creating grassroots support system through Sahakar Shakti, incorporating villagers, volunteers who are going to make people aware about these cooperatives. So local volunteers helping farmers access the cooperatives. Then we have institutionalized support. So again, we have seen there are a lot of bureaucratic hurdles which is being faced. So again, we are going to reduce administrative hurdles. We are going to promote financial inclusion and digital inclusion. We are going to build up digital public infrastructure. We are going to have all cooperative in a stacked manner in the government with respect to digitized format, so that again, their efficiency of working can be improved. Then we have dual architecture model. Again, the example is in Bihar. Apart from cooperative, which are supposed to provide credit, we have different other facilities. Example, farmers, producer companies, FPCs. So they are operational in Bihar. So again, if let's integrate them, that is going to make the situation much more better with respect to these small and marginal farmers. So it creates a coexisting ecosystem, and it gives farmers multiple platforms for credit, production, and marketing. So this is something which is talking about that again, how agricultural cooperatives, which are specifically very important for these small and marginal farmers, how less integrated they are into them, and what steps could be taken so that a better integration could be established and we can improve the condition of these small and marginal farmers, which is very important pressing sector for agriculture. So again, very important topic for GS paper number 3, agriculture, agricultural credit, cooperative society, a very important topic for your examination. Then we have a specific area we are going to discuss. What is the present condition of manufacturing sector of India, right? So a very important topic. We have seen that again, whenever we talk about manufacturing sector, we see a lot of potential with respect to employment, with respect to a lot of semi-skilled kind of work, and they have a huge role to play in the economic development of the country. But again, still India has not fully utilized its manufacturing sector. So in this, we are going to cover what are the challenges which manufacturing sector is facing and how we can improve the manufacturing sector of Indian economy. A very basic topic, a very important topic for an examination of GS paper number 3, right? So here, the manufacturing sector, what is the problem? First, we need to understand that we have jumped from agricultural sector to the service-based sector. We have not utilized the full potential of India's manufacturing sector. And unlike there are some countries who are using their manufacturing sector to the fullest, example China, example South Korea, and they are the leading countries with respect to manufacturing and exports of goods, right? So Indian economy has not went for something called as structural transformation, which means we have not been able to move the agricultural workers to these manufacturing sectors, which are high, let's say, economic growth, sectors. So that is something we are going, this is a problem with respect to Indian manufacturing sector. Then with respect to share, let's say how our peer countries are performing with respect to their contribution from the manufacturing sector to economy. India is contributing 17%, India's manufacturing sector is contributing only 17% to its GDP. If you compare it with China, 25-29%, South Korea 27%, Vietnam in fact 24%. So it means what? All other countries are making and exporting, and India is yet to utilize the potential what it has with respect to its manufacturing sector. Then we have employment and pattern where Indians actually work. So manufacturing sector in the Indian economy only, let's say, employ 11.4% of the workforce. And see the example, in agricultural sector we have 45%. It contributes also very less to the, let's say, the GDP of the country. Services 29%, right? So it shows us what? That again we have less workforce over here, and this less workforce leading to what? Less amount of growth of the manufacturing sector, which has a multiple effects it is going to create with respect to economic development of the country. So manufacturing sector is basically a sector which has a lot of potential with respect to mass jobs in the semi-skilled workers, and India has skipped this stage, and again many people are still stuck in low income agricultural sector, and this is something the problem is there with respect to the manufacturing sector. People are less employed in that particular sector. Then we have something called as a Dutch disease phenomena, which India manufacturing sector is facing. For example, what is Dutch disease? It is basically Dutch, of course, is a city in Netherlands. So in Netherlands, we in 1960s we had this whole coming up of natural gas, but that led to development of natural gas too much, which affected the manufacturing sector of that particular country. This is something India is also experiencing, that again we have seen a very high potential and high growth in the public sector jobs of the country, and that has led to the weakening of Indian manufacturing sector. How? Let's see. So Dutch disease, basically when one sector grows faster, here in India we have seen a huge growth with respect to public employment. People are getting huge amount of salaries, right? And they and that has led to what? That has led to pushing up of cost, that wages are improving, land price are increasing, services are improving, and that is leading to what? Indian manufacturing sector less competitive. So this is something very important. ये question prelims में भी आ सकता है. Then we have other reasons. क्या है? Basic है. We all know this for this manufacturing sector, that informal nature of work is there. Then lack of economy of scale. Some manufacture very small let's say scattered manufacturing sectors. Which have very limited scale with respect to making them as big manufacturing hubs. Low motivation, innovation and productivity with respect to this low chote manufacturing hubs. Then we have a divergent architecture of growth, that India is basically working on a model of consumption-led growth, but China is working on something called as investment and export-driven growth. And that has led to a boost of manufacturing sector in China. So this is something India can also go for. Then other factors, limited automation, technology adoption, high logistics cost. We are working on this in that. What are logistics? That again, how the sectors with respect to movement of goods and services are being handled. So all of these is leading to a raise in the cost of manufacturing in India, and that is something we need to work upon. So in terms of the solutions, the way forward is ki if we want our manufacturing sector to grow, so these are the potential areas where we can work upon. What are those? Strategic technology deployment, right? So if other countries, we see a lot of role of technology in the development of manufacturing sector, so we are going to use them. Large scale adoption of frontier technologies, for example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, advanced materials. This is something which we also need to incorporate in the manufacturing sector. We need to increase the research and developmental investment in the manufacturing sector. We need to upskill the workforce. We need to develop industrial clusters that is going to make the scalability of these manufacturing hubs. We need to overcome structural and regulatory barriers around bureaucratic hurdles, lower tariff for import of raw materials, streamlining land access for industry. All of these things are very important if we want to take the full benefit of the manufacturing sector of India, which has a huge role to play in the economic growth of the country. So very important topic, very classic topic. So yes, you have brushed up the facts. So that is how you're going to prepare this particular topic for your examination. The next is news, place in news. Nigeria, it was in news. Why? Because US has launched a strike against Islamic State in Nigeria. So you're going to locate Nigeria. It is, of course, a region in the West African region, right? So you're going to locate the neighboring countries, what are there, what are the water bodies, right? We have Equatorial Guinea over here, right? It is somewhere in the Atlantic region, right? So that is how the basic vegetation types, major rivers, major freshwater lake. So the capital, of course, is Abuja. So again, whenever these places comes up in news, you're going to locate them in the atlas. You're going to see important features we have discussed over here. That's how you're going to prepare all such place in news, and it is going to make your task easier before the prelims examination, because we see every year 1 or 2 questions, map-based questions are there in the prelims paper. Moving on to the quick updates for the day. So Quality Council of India is in news. Why? Because it has made a next generation policy reforms. So they have made a Q mark, that is Desh Ka Hek, that is a QR marked, that whenever you go to any hospital, labs and any MSME sectors, in order to check whether they are authentic or not, there are QR codes installed, which is going to help the citizens see whether how authentic they are. So it is making what fake certification problem was there, that is going to be handled with this. Then we have Quality Setu, that whenever a citizen is having a problem with respect to any area, they have a grievance redressal mechanism. So online grievance and feedback help desks and time-bound resolution are mandated, which is going to improve the trust and accountability of people towards the governance. Then Quality Passport, it means the quality of products which we are making. So digital quality credential for Indian products. Facilities, of course, facilitates a global access. It is going to boost India's exports and Indian brands. So that is where these 3 reforms have been came up with the Quality Council of India. As a body, it is a body supported by Government of India plus Indian industry. It is registered as a non-profit company under the Registration Societies Registration Act of 1860. nodal ministry is Ministry of Commerce and Industry, coming under Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, and the chairman of the body is appointed by the Prime Ministers on industry's recommendation. Very important facts for your prelims examination. These three basic things which have been made, the new things which have been made by Quality Council of India, again very important from prelims point of view. Then we have PM Setu scheme. So again, PM Setu stands for Pradhan Mantri Skilling and Employability Transformation through upgradation of ITIs, a very important area where again we are going to train people with respect to the jobs which are there in the market, right? So it is of course a centrally sponsored scheme where again funds will be given or shared between the government, central government and the state government. It is coming under Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. The structure is what they have planned in two phases. In component 1, they are going to set up 1,000 ITIs are going to be upgraded using hub and spoke model, which you must have read in economics. The component 2 is we are going to create 5 national skill training institutes upgraded plus 5 NCOs. That is the plan which has been there in the PM Setu scheme. And the governance is the ITIs are run by as a special purpose vehicle with 51% of industry and 49% of government stake. And the funding, which again, as it is a centrally sponsored scheme, the center's component of this particular scheme, for that 50% of that will be funded by Asian Developmental Bank and World Bank. So again, very important facts. ऐसे schemes जब भी news में आते हैं आपको पढ़ना है on the basis of the ministry, the kind of funding and the basic mandate for which that particular scheme is. Then we have Camellia sinensis tea. So again, nowadays you understand many times there has been there that again some infusions which has some flavors are also classified as tea. So this is where the Food Safety and Standards Authority, FSSAI, has talked about that you cannot call any infusion as tea. As if you're calling something as tea, that has to be sourced and derived from Camellia sinensis qualify as a tea. So that is something which this FSCI has told, so that again any fake teas, any infusions are not supposed to be labeled as tea. So as the basic around tea plant, so basically they are called as Assam tea, tea camellia, tea plant. And the climatic requirements of course are basic prelims ke facts from geographical point of view. The climate is tropical and subtropical, warm, moist and frost-free climate. They require a rainfall of 2000 to 4000 mm. They require temperature of 13 to 32 degrees Celsius. The soil is deep, fertile, well-drained and rich in humus. pH is 4.5 to 5.5. Topography is undulating, terrain is preferred. So these are the basic facts, but this topic was in news. Why? Because some infusions were called as tea. FSA has told that again you are no longer you cannot call any infusion as tea. For a tea to be called as a tea, it should be sourced from this Camellia sinensis. Then we have a stone labyrinth in which has been found in Maharashtra. So this is how it looks like. So basically it is the largest circular stone which has been found in Maharashtra, and it is there in the Boramani grassland in the Solapur region of Maharashtra, and it dates back to 2000 years in the 1st and 3rd century CE, and it was there in the Satvahana period, and it has structural features. It has something, these are the kind of concentric circles which this has been, it is basically a very big single piece of a stone, right? And it has been highest number of concentric circles which has been found out in any Indian circular labyrinth. That is again very important from art and culture perspective. Then we have Santhali language. So again the Constitution of India for the very first time has been translated and published in Santhali language. So again that makes this language very important for your prelims examination. So because it is marking 925 years the birth of old Chiki script. So this script was basically developed by Pandit Raghunath Murmu. So Santhali as a language is coming from the family of Munda, which is again Austric, that is Austro plus Asiatic. Constitutional status, it is coming under a 8th scheduled language which was added through the 92nd Amendment Act of 2003 सब facts important है prelims examination के लिए. The speakers are Santhal, which are basically found in West Bengal, Odisha, Jharkhand and Bihar. Again, very important topic. Then we have Kimberley process. So what exactly is Kimberley process? Again, around the topic of diamonds. So India for the very first time is going to be chairing this body. So this Kimberley process is basically a tri-part initiative between the government, the diamond industry and civil society, and the objective that again, because you understand diamond is very costly, right? So again, this is being used for terror financing as well. So rough diamonds are used to fund armed conflicts against legitimate governments. So again, members ने क्या बोला है कि we need to make sure that these diamonds are certified, which is going to stop the misuse of these things. So this body consists of 60 participants, India, including India and the European Union, and it covers 99% of global rough diamond trade. So what they have talked, they are going to give certification scheme for rough diamonds. They are going to be compliant and peer review to ensure high standards, and that is going to keep diamonds conflict out of the global market. So very important topic. आपसे पूछ सकते हैं prelims से, what is Kimberley process? That is something how you can read this news from prelims point of view. Then we have K for submarine launched ballistic missile in India. So again, the DRDO has successfully tested the Kalam 4 submarine launched ballistic missile. It has been launched from INS Arighat. So again, when defense wale news aate hain, you're going to read basic around what is this K4 submarine launched ballistic missile, from where it was launched, which body launched this, tested this. So INS Arighat is second Arihant class submarine, which is again indigenously India's nuclear powered ballistic missile submarines. So Kalam 4 basically is a nuclear capable intermediate range missile. Range is 3500 kilometers. It is platform specific. It is only designed to be taking off from INS Arihant and IS Arighat, that is Arihant class submarines. So it has a lot of significance with respect to India's nuclear triad, and it is of course ensuring a second strike capability from sea from India with respect to this development. So again, a very important topic for your defense sector. With this, we come to an end for today's new discussion. All important questions which could be framed from the topics which I have discussed will pop up in your screen. Please solve those questions. That's how you will get confidence with respect to current affairs preparation in this examination, which is very, very, very important. And lastly, Vision Eyes has come up with a digital current affairs platform. Please go explore this particular website. It is certainly going to be helping you a lot with respect to your current affairs preparation. So until next time, all the very best and thank you so much.